Good evening and welcome to Sports Report. On tonight's programme we'll be speaking to Gaba's senior and under-18 ladies squads, and we will be catching up with the Taekwondo after a busy few months for them too. But first, the curtain has fallen on the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. The Games were officially closed during a spectacular closing ceremony on Sunday, and John brings us the latest regarding Team Gibraltar.
Gibraltar began its time in Glasgow at the 20th edition of the Commonwealth Games on the 23rd of July when the athletes and officials entered Celtic's Parkhead Stadium for the opening ceremony. The actual competitive action began the following day with Gibraltar swimmers in early action in the pool and the Rocks triathletes competing at the Strathclyde Country Park. Over the course of the next 6 days, Team Gibraltar experienced highs and lows across Glasgow and further beyond in Dundee, where Gibraltar's shooters were competing. After 6 days of competition at the 20th Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, the majority of Gibraltar's squad had competed. Day 7 saw just pieces of action for Team Gibraltar. At just after 10 in the morning, sprinter Jirai Torres went in Heat 1 of the 200 metres first round. Jirai, who'd earlier competed in the 100 metres heats on Sunday, produced a second season's best as he recorded 22.55. The other action for Gibraltar took place in Scottstown with Anthony Brindle and Christian Navas in with a slim chance of progressing to the knockout stages of squash men's doubles. The pair needed to beat Zambia to progress but lost their contest 2-0 to finish their involvement in the squash events for this Games. Day 8's primary focus for Gibraltar was the cycling time trial with 3 cyclists, Julian Belido, Mark Francis and Lee Calderon, hitting the time trial circuit around the streets of Glasgow. The trio were in the first wave of riders, with Julian off first. He crossed the finish line in 58.49.28. Lee was next home, pipping Julian's time by less than a second, clocking 58.48.36, while Mark came home just over the hour mark in 1 hour 7.38. All would finish just outside the midpoint of the 60 riders who took to the start line. Throughout the course of the Games, Sports Minister Stephen Linares is in Glasgow supporting all in Team Gibraltar, and during his time I managed to speak to him.
The organisation has been brilliant, the weather has helped a lot, but I can say that all the organisation is great. I mean, everybody's having a good time, and not only that, the standard of the athletes are high, and it's great. Yes, it's great to be here.
This time last year you were in the Island Games with Gibraltar and Bermuda, where Gibraltar can actually compete. Is this perhaps a stage too far with some of the results that we're getting at the moment?
Yes, it is. I mean, the standard of the Commonwealth Games is much, much higher. I mean, it's next to the Olympics. This is, I think, one of the biggest games that there might be in the world. 71 countries participating, and you get countries of a very high level like Australia, Canada, England, Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland, which are doing really well. So the standard is very, very high, and Gibraltar to compete in this is very, very difficult. And I think that what Gibraltar needs to do is to rethink and really look at where we want to get to. We will not reach, I don't think, unless we have a very, very good elite athlete to the pinnacle, to the top. But what we could aim at is to up the stakes. I mean, there are countries, smaller countries that are doing pretty well, which is Guernsey, Jersey, Isle of Man, and some of the Caribbean countries. They're doing pretty well. The standard has gone up. So Gibraltar now has to work hard at least getting to that level.
Is this something that you will put on the cards when you get back to Gibraltar and debrief really about the Games itself, about how Gibraltar does go to that next level?
Yes, it is. I mean, this is part and parcel of what I would like to see, which is the sports development in Gibraltar for the elite. And we, as you know, we got some funding for the elite athletes, but it's how we tackle that. It's not only good to get young children, which we do in Gibraltar. The participation level of children is very, very high, but then it gets to the level where sacrifices have to be made, and athletes who want to reach the pinnacle, or at least near or the nearabouts, will have to make sacrifices, and it's to do with the coaching, it's to do with the attitudes of athletes. So all this together is what we need to work at, and I think we do have talent in Gibraltar where some athletes can get to a very high level, and that's what we've got to aim at.
And what has been your highlight from a Team Gibraltar athlete or perspective since you've been here? The Games are about to come to a close.
Well, look, the atmosphere between our athletes is great. We do participate heavily, because when we think about 30,000 people and we've got 27 athletes, that is a high call. It's quite a lot. I mean, you get countries that have millions and send 1 or 2 athletes. But we need to look at the level, and this is the issue here. But look, the athletes here in Gibraltar, from Gibraltar, have had a good time. They now understand and they see what is needed of them, or any other that come after them, what the level is about. And the Commonwealth Games is a good sort of like window for Gibraltar and aiming at. The Island Games does help as well, and there you can see that we are not winning as many medals as we used to, and that is because the level is going high. So we need to up our stakes now.
Looking forward to the last couple of days as well.
Absolutely. I mean, looking at the games are now getting very excited in the athletics, where you can see top athletes running, and the atmosphere is hotting up to the finals of most of the things. So yes, I'm really enjoying it.
Gibraltar's final competitive action came on Friday the 1st of August, with debutant Harvey Dixon running in the 1500 metres semi-final. Harvey, competing in his first major championship, looked calm and assured throughout the race and finished in a new Gibraltar national record of 3 minutes 44 seconds .67. The record had stood since 1986, when it was set by Johnny Chapri, a stalwart of local middle distance running. The final day also saw Gibraltar's Commonwealth Games Association president called upon to make 2 medal and gift presentations. In the early afternoon at the Hydro Complex, Charlie Flower presented the medals for the women's gymnastics beam event, while in the early evening at the Hampden track, Charlie was on hand to present the gifts to the winners and runners-up in the men's 10,000 metres. A fitting way for Gibraltar's president to round off his involvement at the Games, as he looks set to retire in the near future. Gibraltar's participation at the 20th edition of the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Scotland, drew to a close on Sunday evening after 11 days of competition. The closing ceremony brought the curtain down on the Games and saw the flag passed on to the Gold Coast City in Australia, who will host the Games in 2018. Swimmer Jim Sanderson, who broke 3 national records in the Tollcross pool, was selected to be Gibraltar's flag bearer at the closing ceremony. The ceremony was every bit as spectacular as the opening event nearly 2 weeks ago, with a packed Hampden Park, the venue. Witnessing a real party atmosphere, with Australian pop sensation Kylie Minogue entertaining all after the speeches and presentations. After the ceremony and before the teams returned, I spoke to Jim about his time at the Games and what it meant to be Gibraltar's flag bearer.
Jim, end of your second Commonwealth Games at the tender age of 21. Happy with your performance in the pool?
Yeah, well, I got 3 out of 4 nationals that I tried to get at the start. Just missed one of them, but I've seen no complaints of walking away with 3. So personally, my performances went really well.
And the icing on the cake was being named flag bearer for the closing ceremony last night. That must be a testament to all the hard work you put in training heading towards the Games. Yeah, it was. It was an honour to be named that flag bearer. The only thing that's going to really beat that would be doing that at the opening ceremony. But yeah, I like to think it's all the hard work that I had to put in over the past 4 years since the last game. So.
And if you look at your career, youth games, 2 Commonwealth Games, you've got a very young team around you in the swimming pool now, and some old heads as well, Colin Benson. Is there a good feel-good factor within the team?
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of younger guys coming through, such as Christina and a few more that hopefully will make it for the next time round. And there's myself and Colin, who have been around a bit more than that now. So I think there is a good blend between the young and the old in there. So it'll keep us on our toes.
And how much do you put it down to the hard work and effort that Joe Santos, your perennial coach, puts into the time and effort down at the pool?
There's a lot. Joe does a lot for us. So in terms of the sets and making sure we're all prepared and everything else, that all goes down to him personally. And it's the same thing he's been doing for the past 40, 50 years now. So a lot of it goes down to him.
And you swam individual races. Was it satisfying to finish off with a relay that we don't normally do at Commonwealth level?
Yeah, that was something different. It was a nice change to actually come out on the last day and being next to Scotland for the relay. So that was something different, but it was very, very enjoyable.
And what's your plans now? Back to studying and then start already focusing on the Gold Coast, which is less than 4 years away?
Well, we've actually Joe's given us a couple of weeks off, so we're back in the pool as of the 18th, preparing for the Worlds, and then just another long stretch down to the Gold Coast, so it'll be good.
What would be your expectations at the Gold Coast? You will be the senior swimmer by then.
It'll be just to keep swimming well, keep performing, hopefully break some more nationals, and then see what else is to come. So that's the aim. If I swim well, then I can't make any complaints about anything else.
Any chance of making finals maybe in 4 years' time?
We'll have to see. We'll just see who's around, see who's swimming, and let's make sure I get there first before I start counting my chickens.
Over the course of the games, there have been highs, lows, tears and joy for all of Team Gibraltar. National records have been broken and personal bests made. The unique atmosphere of the Commonwealth has been evident throughout, with friendships both old and new forged and rekindled. Some of Team Gibraltar had already returned to the Rock, however the bulk of the athletes and officials arrived on Tuesday morning. As reminded in the closing ceremony, the next games are less than 4 years away, and this time on the other side of the world. Preparations for the 21st edition are already underway. Chef de mission Joe Skembry had overseen Gibraltar's time in Glasgow and was happy in general with all aspects of Team Gibraltar's participation, with Joe's closing quote being, "The games have come and gone, and overall it's been a positive experience. Lessons have been learnt, and the immediate focus will now switch to the Youth Games next year in Samoa and 2 years later in St Kitts and Nevis. However, preparations for the Gold Coast in 2018 will continue."
Well, I'm afraid that's it for part one of tonight's programme. But join us again after the break when we'll be catching up with basketball and taekwondo. Welcome back to Sports Reports. Now, GABA's busy few months of European competition has concluded, with the senior and under-18 ladies rounding things off a few weeks back. The seniors were first up in Austria and were drawn in a group against Iceland and Malta. They didn't have the best of starts to their campaign, losing very heavily to the pre-tournament favourites and eventual silver medalists Iceland. They lost their second game heavily too at the hands of Malta, before a loss against Azerbaijan by 19 points set Gib up for their final game of the tournament against Wales. Once again, the Welsh proved too strong for Gibraltar, as our ladies lost by 57 points to 41 to finish in bottom spot. A week later, the under-18 ladies fared relatively better than the seniors, as they managed to qualify for the semi-finals. They began their campaign with a narrow defeat to Malta, losing out by just 12 points, before a heavy defeat at the hands of Andorra 2 days later. As a result of finishing last in their group of three, they then faced the Principality of Monaco in what was essentially a quarter-final, after they finished second in their group. Monaco edged Gibraltar in the first quarter, taking a 3-point lead after the opening 15-minute period. Another solid performance in the second saw them take the quarter by 17 points to 9, opening up an 11-point lead at half-time. But Gibraltar turned things around completely in the second half, as they stormed to take the third quarter by 8 points to 2. To pull themselves back into the game. In the final quarter, our girls pressed even further, showing true pride and determination. With just seconds left on the clock, the score was set at 39 all, and as the clock ran down, it looked like the game was going into overtime to decide who would advance into the semis. But then, on the final buzzer, Gibraltar's guard, Joelle Grech, tried her luck from just inside the D and was successful, giving her team the win without the need of the extra period. They then faced Malta in the semi-finals, but it wasn't to be for our girls, as they lost by 57 points to 22, despite a hearty and gutsy performance. This set them up for a tough third-place playoff against Andorra, who had already beaten them heavily just 3 days earlier. This time round, Gibraltar's under-18 ladies were in contention for the bronze medal throughout the game, which turned out to be much more competitive than their previous encounter. In the end, Andorra ran out as winners to claim the bronze medal, but only by 9 points. Once both squads had returned to the Rock, I spoke to the man in charge of both teams, Darren Coling. Well, Darren, it's been a very busy couple of weeks for you and the Gibraltar's lady basketball players. We'll just start off by talking about the senior ladies, which you coached in Austria this year. In terms of results, perhaps slightly disappointing, losing every game, but at the end of the day, you need to sort of concentrate on the positives. What